first want to thank the organizers. Everyone here has been amazing. This is my first time in Kansas City, and so far, everyone I've met, just the energy here, it's been incredibly inspiring, so thank you. Today I'm going to give you my top 10 lessons for entrepreneurship. And these lessons are universal, but how we arrive at them and what we do with them are actually very personal. So as I'm telling you my story, how I arrived, I want each and every one of you to think about your own story and what slide deck you would write and will write when you're standing here on stage giving this talk. So I'll start from the beginning. I grew up in Berkeley, California, the liberal oasis of the country in Northern California. Here I learned about sex education from bumper stickers that said US out of my uterus. I learned about politics by writing letters to President Reagan chastising him for bombing Libya. We literally sang Kumbaya every day in school after meditation and yoga exercises in the morning. So when people ask me, what do you want to do when you grow up? I would say, I want to be a Hebrew school teacher in Hong Kong. And this kind of misguided thinking is a direct product of growing up in a counterculture that's so far to the left, it's practically upside down. And the worst part was, I thought the whole world was like this. I thought everyone was protesting in the streets and had the privilege to protest capitalism the way that we all did. Luckily, when I was 8 years old, that vision of the world shattered. I went to Hopi Land, which is a Native American reservation in Arizona that's actually closed off to the public, but we had pen pals. I was in 3rd grade. We took the train there with our class and did homestays with our pen pals. And this romanticized utopia of this peaceful, natural Native American experience that I had imagined was not actually the case at all. When I got there, I realized these people were really living in poverty. There was no running water, much less organic tofu. It was very clear Bob Dylan was not going to be playing in their community theater anytime soon. And what I thought was romantic was actually really hard. And so I was really happy that at such a young age I was able to have an experience that shattered the way I was thinking, that this whole world is just like Berkeley. So the first lesson really is to validate your assumptions. And do this as early as possible before you start building. This is something that we have to challenge ourselves, our team, to do every single day before we build these huge elaborate features that we're convinced everyone wants, or a marketing campaign that our users are absolutely going to love. We need to validate that first. This will save you a lot of time and money and heartache. So this photo is from my spring break sophomore year of college. We are in the Sahara Desert. I know this doesn't look like a typical spring break 2000. This is Ali and his cousin, who I met in a carpet store. I was studying abroad in Madrid, and my best friends went to Greece for spring break. I couldn't afford the trip, so I took the bus with a few other students down to the border. Algeciras, took the ferry across to Morocco, and went to the small town of Suera. And in this small town, I was sitting in a carpet shop and started talking with the owner. I was like, we really want to go ride camels. And it says in here, it's $1,000 in my guidebook, and we don't have this kind of money. Do you have any ideas? And he said, well, of course, don't do that. That's Disneyland. That's not the real desert. I'll take you into the desert. My cousin is the chief of a caravan tribe, and we'll go stay with him. We actually stayed in that hut. And then you can go out into the deep desert for a few days. He'll send one of his guys with you, and you can ride your camel and come back. We'll provide meals for you. So me and 3 friends, we went and we did it. We paid him $250 He drove us 15 hours in his Honda Accord through the Atlas Mountains into the desert, and we spent 5 days with his cousin and his cousin's tribe. And this was the seed of Vayable. This is what we do, which is empowering people to make a living, doing what they love, monetizing their resources, and showing travelers a unique experience they would never be able to access in guidebooks or through traditional tour operators. And this all started because I talked to strangers. So we're not 5 years old. It's not actually dangerous to talk to strangers anymore. And somehow we forget that because it becomes so ingrained. Don't talk to strangers. It's actually quite literally your business to do this. So life-changing experiences are addictive. That summer after going to Morocco, I went to Honduras. And I felt like, Morocco was so kind of hedonistic in a way. Here I am, just this observer, spending money to have this great time. I wanted to give back to the community. So I wrote for a grant to volunteer in this mountain village called Brisas del Campo in the mountains of Honduras doing hurricane relief. And it was my job to, along with some other volunteers, to carry these bricks over from the brick pile to the foundation we had built for these homes, and put mortar down and actually build these homes. Well, it turns out I'm really bad at carrying bricks. And I'm really bad at laying down mortar and building homes. This isn't a strength of mine. And in fact, the girl next to me in this photo, Millennia, could lift twice as many bricks as me and 3 times faster than me without the gloves and the fancy equipment that we'd brought with us. And so, I realized that this was more of this kind of, hey, Ma, look at me, I'm this altruistic humanitarian volunteer moment for me, than it really was about helping this community and doing what was the best thing for this community. And the best thing would have been for me to leverage my own strengths, which are communication, coming home and telling Millennia's story, finding ways, finding portals for capital for this community so that they could sustain themselves. So I went home and I did that. We raised more money, sent it over to them. I did share her story, and the platform that I've built now, there is actually a guide from this community on the platform, making money for people, from people who go to Honduras. So the lesson here is play to your strengths. Don't fall into this romantic vision of what you want your skills to be. Don't romanticize someone else's strengths. You all have your own, and those are enough, and play to that. So after college, I started working at a law firm, which seems to be a theme here, because what else are you going to do with a liberal arts degree when you don't really know what you want to do in life? And of course, I was from Berkeley, so it was going to be a civil rights law firm. It was the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, and I was working on education cases, voting rights, criminal justice, things that I'm deeply, deeply passionate about, but I was miserable. And I was miserable because my heart was not in it. I didn't want to just depose people. I wanted to surface their stories and tell it to the masses. So after a year, I quit my job, and I started interning for Michael Moore on a self-documentary he was working on called Fahrenheit 9/11. They quickly hired me then as a researcher, and I started to run the office. And there I was surrounded by people who were working for hardly any money, in pretty brutal working conditions. We were working long hours. It's very akin to doing a startup, not eating well, exhausted all the time on tight deadlines, small budgets. But it was the most rewarding experience ever, and we delivered a product that we could all be so proud of, and it was because everyone was working from a place of passion. So really, what I learned from I was 23 was start from the heart. Really start from a place where you can feel passionate and get behind, because you're gonna otherwise just get fatigued no matter how much you intellectually care about what you're doing. If your heart's not in it, you won't be able to succeed. The next one is putting community over credentials. I also learned this the hard way. I went to Columbia Journalism School for graduate school after working for Michael Moore. And I really thought that the education I was getting there and the degree from an Ivy League school would help accelerate my career. And it turned out, after I graduated, nobody was rolling out the red carpet for me. What I did have, however, was the most amazing community of friends and colleagues who shared my passion for storytelling and surfacing the stories of these unsung heroes all over the world. And these friends are in every corner of the world today. Here are three of us in Cairo. Our friend in the middle, Ralia, is a reporter for the AP. She reported out of Baghdad during Iraq and is from Cairo. And these are the kinds of experiences that I got to have because I had built this community so actively in graduate school. In fact, I'm standing on this stage today because one of my best friends, Antonio Neves, emceed Big Omaha last year. We also went to graduate school together. So, and it turns out you actually don't have to pay $60,000 to build a community. You can do it right here, right now. So look around you, literally right now, and you can see this is your community. You may have a co-founder here, or a best friend, or a mentor, and it's really that simple. So that would be my lesson, which is putting community over credentials, and you can save yourself another 20 years of perk and loan payments, which I'm still paying off. So from Columbia University, I went and worked at my dream job at The Daily Show. I had spent about 6 months trying to find a connection in there to get my resume in. And I finally did. I landed my dream job. I'm a researcher, so I'm spending all day mining blogs and local news sources for stories that we can then cover on the show. And this is a shoot from one of them, where we did kind of a Queer Eye for the Straight Guy for a Guantanamo Bay cell that was on display in Philadelphia. And The Daily Show was probably one of the best experiences of my life because I'm working for someone who is this incredible visionary. He had the audacity to think that by exploiting the hypocrisies in politics and media, he can actually make a living. And by making influencers who he found to be hypocritical the butt of his jokes, he can start a global movement and have influence on policy. That's a kind of ridiculous premise we all take for granted now, but if you think about it, that's just absolutely delusional. And so here I was helping to fulfill Jon Stewart's delusional vision of the world, and I was ignoring my own. I wanted to have the kind of influence that Jon Stewart had. I wanted to be able to reach that many people and build a platform that could touch every corner of the world in a way that he had. And I wasn't, because that's crazy. But you know what? That's right, that is. I'm insane, and so are you because you're here. So embrace that. Embrace your delusions, because that is the starting point of entrepreneurship. Once you decide to do that, next it's time to find your Virgil, which I was an intellectual history major, and my favorite text was the Divine Comedy. And Dante's guide through purgatory into paradise is Virgil, who acts as his mentor. And I've always had mentors. In high school, it was my soccer coach. In college, it was my professor. It's so important, I think, in every stage of your life, but no point more than when you're starting a company, because there really is no structure and no rules, and you're creating something from scratch. So to have someone who's a few steps ahead of you and has done some of these things is absolutely invaluable. So I met mine at an Airbnb meetup. This is him. He's one of the co-founders of Airbnb, Joe Gebbia. I was a host on Airbnb. We met in 2010. And we bonded over similar values. We had a very similar vision of what we thought the world should look like, and community building and adventure. We had similar politics. We had very similar upbringing and families. And I think that that's really important because we developed a real, genuine friendship about shared values and mutual respect, and which has allowed this relationship to grow into a real, genuine friendship over the years. And Joe would meet with me every week and hold me accountable to what the next task was. Which brings me to the next thing. I sat down with Joe the first time we met for coffee, and I pitched him my idea for Vayable, and it was just an idea at the time. There's this website, and it's going to be for socially responsible travel, and people are going to, get to experience all these different corners of the world that they never knew, and the market is so huge, and there's this big opportunity, and this is what people are doing, but it's so outdated, and all of this stuff, and we're going to use this kind of technology and figure out payments, and I went nuts, so excited. I stop, and he just stares at me, silent. He's a very smart guy, so I know that he could understand what I was talking about. And he just looks at me and he says, "Get it out." And I was like, what? He just said, "Get it out." And I'm thinking to myself, well, but I'm not an engineer, I can't build this. I'm not prepared. I don't have 10 years domain experience. All of the excuses were running through my head. But I couldn't say anything because he was right. I realized these were all my own voices just holding me back. And what you need to do is dive out of that airplane and build your parachute on the way down, because you're never prepared to start a startup. That's the very nature of it. So, number 2 is get it out. The last thing is very important. I guess that was number 3. We have 2 number 2s. So, be authentic. This one, I mean this in a very specific way. I think that in startup culture particularly, there's a lot of pattern matching, as they say, that goes on. Investors in particular are going to look and see what's been successful in their portfolio, and they're going to go look for that again. And I think we all have a very general sense of what this pattern is, which is you're in Silicon Valley, you're a young guy, you're probably a college dropout, probably from Harvard. So you're basically Mark Zuckerberg, right? Most of us aren't, other than Zuck. So instead of trying to be that, I think it's really, really important that you just own what you actually are. Paul Graham said to us last summer, right after demo day, he sat me down and he said, you and Tim, my co-founder Tim, you don't look like Larry and Sergey. So you're going to need to go out and close this round as quickly as possible, because you don't pattern match here in Silicon Valley. And I looked back at him and I was like, PG, you're absolutely right. I appreciate that. I figured that out a little bit before you did, and I just closed our round. So he was very, very relieved to hear that. And we did it because we went out and pitched who we are and exactly what we are. I used to feel insecure that I wasn't an engineer, and here I am, the founder and CEO of a tech company. So I tried to teach myself Rails. I just actually recently built my first app in Ruby on Rails, and realized this is not the best use of my time. This isn't authentically me. I'm good at a lot of other things that is vital to this company. So be authentic and be who you naturally are in your most natural raw state, which for me is this. This is me. I must have been a few months old. But I look at this photo and I see that this is me and my kind of purest, raw self before I became jaded and corrupted by all these years. So this is me today, kind of similar look on my face. This is my team. Just a few weeks ago, actually, we did an offsite in wine country. And everyone here is doing exactly what we're preaching and what we're building on our platform, which is we are making a living doing what we love. The team I've built has been so inspiring and challenges me every day. Everyone brings, a different strength to the table. And everyone is here because they believe so deeply in the mission, and they're so passionate about it and want to lend their skills to something that's bigger than them. And so what we've done is really created a mirror of our product in our team and vice versa. And I think that that's so important, that you're going to reflect, your team should reflect your product, and the other way around. This is Vayable. And what that really comes down to is building the world you want to live in. And I think this, for me, is my number one lesson. Because life is how you spend your time, as my grandmother used to tell me. And there's no point going out and risking everything. The odds are stacked against you when you start your own company if you're not actually building the world you want to live in and believe in. So I will leave you with that. Thank you.
All right. Awesome. We can take some questions for Jamie. Great job. That was great. I learned a lot. I'm inspired now. I am.
Thank you.
Any questions? Yet? You, sir, you are standing, and whether you know it or not, yes, you. You're going to ask a question. I'm calling you out. All right, well, you're on deck. You've been saved.
I'll let you off the hook, Shane. I think I saw a tweet, I didn't go through the link, that is there Vayable here in Kansas City, some people opening up opportunities for that?
Yes, so we are we're actually in 100 countries, and the platform's open to anywhere. We have one experience in Kansas City right now. I think maybe after today, there was promise of another. If anyone offers experiences on the platform, I will personally book it while I'm here, so that you'll already have reviews and be vetted. This is how we grow our community.
Awesome.
Hey.
Yes.
Hi, Jamie. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I wanted to know how you first got your funding. Did you grow organically, or did you go out and how did you find your investment capital?
Yeah, that's a good question. So it took a while. We really needed to show traction. The technology at our marketplace is not the most complex. It's something that people can replicate. So you really have to show a unique advantage and why we're ahead, why we're the best, and why we're going to win this market in other ways. So the most direct way to show that is through hockey stick growth. And for a marketplace platform like ours, that really means revenue. So when we went out and raised, we were already at a break-even, profitable point.
How did you identify your sales or business development people? Because in every industry, I'm in regulatory compliance, so there's certain things you have to know to sell a software application. Were there certain things that people needed to know, or how did you identify the proper people?
So you're looking at the sales team for the first year right now. Mm-hmm. It was me and our community manager. Neither of us have background in sales, but we know our product, we know the value proposition better than anyone. And so, I think you just teach yourself these things, and then as you scale up and once you've proven the concept and you validated your assumptions, you can then go in and hire the pros who are better than you. But you really shouldn't be delegating anything that you haven't tried yourself.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Great.
Can you talk about the difficulty of finding your team, and if you're able to find it in your immediate community, in that process a little bit?
Yeah, and this is something that I think is really important. So, as a non-technical entrepreneur, often the first thing is, I gotta go find a technical co-founder. And I actually don't think that that's the best first thing to do. You should really go build and do as much as you can. I started this site as a WordPress blog. I taught myself a little HTML and CSS to style it. And then what I ended up doing was printing flyers out, PDF flyers. I literally printed them out for experiences, found guides on the ground. We used Square for payments on the ground, and I recruited my first customers. I opened up my apartment for Airbnb guests and then recruited all of them as customers. So it was like highly, highly manual. And I think that, the more you do that, I didn't meet my co-founder until I'd already launched a site and we had some business and we were post-revenue. And he said to me, Jamie, I'm going to admit to you, I have a bias against business people, which you will hear this a lot. And it's always been unclear what the value add, but I know I want to work with you because you execute and you actually built something, and it is crystal clear to me what your value add is. So you should ask yourself that. Would your potential future technical co-founder be able to sit down and say that to you?
Jamie, did you ever have a moment like Adam spoke earlier where you're like, I've made it? I've created what I've envisioned?
God, no.
Yeah.
And when I try to picture that moment, I actually don't know when that would be. And when I talk with other entrepreneurs, founders whose businesses are much farther ahead than ours, they actually say the same thing. I think that's kind of the point. It really is phasic. And I think that I look at things more as milestones and setting out goals for our team that we reach, and then celebrating those milestones and then getting back to work and racing to the next.
What is next?
We're actually doing a big launch next week on a feature we've worked on for a while, City Pages, and really just growing the community into more markets right now.
Awesome. Yes.
So you talk about validation and a validation process. Talk a little bit more about how do you guys do that? How is it, if you're building a feature, you're building a product, you said earlier, don't actually build anything until you've actually validated it, but then you just got to build it, and it's kind of that chicken and the egg syndrome. Talk about how you've seen that actually work.
So that's actually a great point. I think you want to build as little as possible to validate it, and sometimes you do need to build something. So you can just kind of, even if it's a little bit messy and hacky, whatever the minimum amount is. But oftentimes, and our platform's pretty unique because there's an offline component, there's a large non-technical component. But often what that really means is talking to people, talking to strangers, not just any strangers, but your users, your potential users, and asking them. Every week we bring in many of our users into the office, have lunch with them, talk with them, walk through the product with them, and then all day long we're on the phone talking to them, emailing with them, getting their feedback. I think that's really the best way to test things is really to talk to people.
Yeah. Sure.
Hey, so I'm addicted to travel, and I kind of see a common theme here. Maybe that's how you got into this, but I was curious. I'm sure you've done a bunch of these different experiences. Do you have a favorite? You shared the camel story, but do you have a few favorites, stories from experiences from the platform that maybe you want to share?
Yeah, one of them is this wine tour on bikes in Santa Rosa. The guide, she's from Brooklyn, and she moved out to California because she loves wine and she loves bikes. So she decided to start this little operation on the side, and she's a full-time nurse. And when she's not nursing, she's doing this tour. So I went with two of my good friends. The three of us hadn't hung out much together, and we did this experience, and by the end we were like sisters. It was incredible. It's amazing how these experiences really bring people together because there's a shared value and interest at the core of it, but also kind of the structure that these experiences on Vayable provide, I think, really provide some context for people in a way that when you just sit and meet someone for coffee or hang out in your apartment, you don't really have, and it becomes this reference point.
It's great. It sounds like a great experience. Too much wine on a bike. You could use a nurse.
The ride home was brutal.
All right. Okay, we'll do these real quick. We got about a minute. So boom, boom.
It looks like your team likes to have fun with that Sonoma picture. How do you balance fun, especially with a great, business like yours that's very fun by nature, with productivity that's crucial to all that manual work in a startup?
That's a great question. And, I can only speak to this as very early stage. We have 7 members on the team. I think the answer to this is very different when it's 40 and then 400 and 4,000. But with our small team right now, everyone on the team, I've never met a group of more self-motivated people in my life. My co-founder and myself are very much like that, but everyone we've brought in is extremely self-motivated. So I see it as the leader of the team and kind of the organization. It's our job to remind everyone, hey, go have fun. Let's take some time off. It's not really the other way around. We're not trying to wrangle people to work. It's more like a reminder. And they do that with me too. Like, Jamie, you might want to take an afternoon off. You seem a little burnt out, maybe. So I think that we all just default to a hyper-productive place, and that's usually the world we're operating in. And then we'll take a step back and remember, oh, maybe we should just go drink and not talk about work or something.
Nice. Yes.
Yeah, my name is Simon, and my question is that sometimes when you're starting something up, there's this feeling that maybe not knowing a lot about the business you're going into is a benefit because you're not hampered by old ways of doing things. How much did you know about the travel business before you started it, and was that a level of knowledge an advantage or a disadvantage?
Great question. I didn't work in the travel industry at all. I had traveled a lot and did a lot of research. And by research, I don't mean just Googling, which I did as well, and read market reports, which were mostly useless, but talking to people in the old industry. So talking with people who had started tour operator companies, different group travel companies, talking with travel agents, and hearing their take on it, which I find much more valuable because they're going to tell you what's broken, which are probably just going to validate what you see yourself as an actual user. So for me, it was much more valuable to be a user, an end user, both as a guide and as a customer on our site, or a potential customer, than to have come from the incumbent industry.
All right, let's give it up one more time for Jamie Wong. Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you.